Boom, 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 boom. Three-headed monster. Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's the three-headed monster again. Sorry that we wasn't on Friday, but we came today to bring what we was gonna do on Friday. Um, we're gonna keep talking about this pre-early United States during the colonial times before the formation and how everything is being brought forth or how things were in the late 1600s, early 1700s. I know we've been talking about the last couple of series. We've been talking about Virginia and how big Virginia was, and how that was like the cornerstone of the how that man on the moon, which some people believe got there, didn't get there, and he puts his flag down, and it's the United States flag. This is Britain making their stake to their claim to what America is, or what they saying is theirs, as in early America. So we gonna get into it. Hopefully we educate you. I appreciate everyone that comes on. I appreciate everybody that's tuning in and listens. This is not for everybody. Ain't like we're here to entertain. We're here to build, and that's what we do. What's going on, Jerome? Unmute yourself. There you
I
go.
got you, bro. I'm listening. I'm just doing my share thing. Um, man, everything's good. Just ready to get into it. Uh, keep everybody uh, giving them the basics on where we're from, where we're at, where we're going. You know, that's why history is so important. Um, just to give you the basis of everything that we talk about. So, what's up, Eric?
Oh, you already got people on? Man, I don't
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. He's already on. So, yeah, man. So let's get it started. What's up, Facebook family? What's up, YouTube family, and every medium that you're watching us on? You're welcome. Um, as always, we get on here, we talk, we conversate, we just try to give you points of interest that can elevate your mind. Uh, as always, this is our opinion. You know, please don't believe anything that we tell you. Whatever we say, whatever you hear, go research it for yourself. Find the facts, find the truth, come back to us. Let's build, let's go forward. Uh, because education is the key. Education is what takes you from ignorance. Everything that we talk about. So is that
That was me. That was me. That's my bad.
you good? You good? I know I heard my voice. I was like, wait a minute. But but yeah, every ignorance can only be cured by knowledge and facts. So that's we're ready to get into it, B.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a couple more things. I don't know what's going on and why we slow today. Uh, but it's fascinating because the more and more I keep digging into it, the more and more I keep in my mind, I keep like opening. It's opening my eyes
Right.
of what I'm looking for, what I'm looking at, and it's kind of like answering some questions. Because I kind of asked you some questions, and it was basically when it came to how did these 13 colonies become 13 colonies? They just appeared out of nowhere. Like, how did these, you know, because we don't have much history on these colonies. We touched on the first one. Well, actually, the second one. Royal Oak, Virginia is the first English colony, and we're looking at around 1585 is what the first one that we come up with, but that didn't only last but a year, so that kind of like disappeared and nobody knows what happened. And then we get to Virginia, the Virginia Company, that came over, that got permission. and they started Jamestown. This is where it gets interesting because we go and I know we did last week. I think it was last week. We talked about the Virginia how the colonies had to go through, and I
Yeah.
mean we go through 1600 early 1600s. So we building and building. Because everybody keeps thinking that the Pilgrims. The history that we was taught was the Pilgrims was the first ones to come here from England, and that's like 1620. And it's kind of like, wait a minute. So where the hell Jamestown come from? Jamestown was already established before that. They said the first. They already said the first slaves. The first slaves was in 1619, and the Pilgrims didn't get here to 1620. So somebody help me understand what this history they want to tell us, but you know. So let's
Right.
we do our research. So we're trying to build. We're trying to build, and we're trying to get clear understanding. Because, like I said, Jamestown was established in 1607.
Right.
So the question I had asked you is, where the hell these other 12 come from? Other 12 colonies come from,
Right. Right. Right.
and trying to get a basis of what happened. Boy, this is it. Just say this: the early colonies is no different than what Europe, the old European history is.
Right.
Countries fighting countries, and that's what we see now. But I know you want me to pull up these maps, so I'm gonna pull up these maps. Jerome want me to pull up. No, 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 no. Let's see. And this is interesting. So we're looking at 1700s now,
Yeah,
and
you're
this
looking at a process of about 80 years after most European countries that came over had staked their claims. Uh, and so you can see um, the reason why Spain has so much territory is because Spain and Portugal had 100-year start. So you're looking at the time of the late 1400s and the beginning of the 1500s um, when Portugal and Spain actually started coming into the New World.
mm,
So, so just by being first, they got to claim and acquire a lot of land, but they didn't get the whole.
you make a again. This is we looking at 1700s.
Right,
So we're mm, so we're looking at the 13 colonies
right,
that's established colonies. We look at France, which is basically they own basically the Midwest region of what they call United States. They haven't explored it yet. They just
right,
claim
right,
it.
right.
They claim parts of
It's a
Canada.
claim, and like I said, we got to look at these are claims. Not and claims are disputable.
So we see, the Dutch. I mean, you could say the British Isles, or Great Britain, um, and then we Portugal, which everybody knows that's basically what they mainly is Brazil.
Right.
You know,
That's crazy because that's basically all they got.
so we looking at West Coast from Texas, Central America, South America, Central America, what we call Mexico, Texas, California, Nevada, all the way, the whole West Coast is all Spaniards, and
Right,
Florida. My bad, and Florida.
right,
So it's kind of interesting when we look at this, and we're not really understanding the severity of what's going on. So let me see if I can get another picture that can show you, New Spain. the French. This whole area is the French. You have Quebec, you have Montreal. I'm trying to think who found Quebec is French. Yeah, Quebec is the French. That's
Right,
1608.
right,
Um, Montreal is it actually was French, but then the British kind of took that one. So again, we're looking at another map of what 1700.
right,
Um, nope, nope, that ain't what I want. That ain't what I want. But this is our ancestors. This is our indigenous people and the tribes that was here. So you claiming land that was already, what's the word I'm looking for? Established, not established, occupied by our ancestors, our indigenous people, our, you can say, forefathers to a certain extent.
right.
So, and this one right here is letting you know how big Virginia was. Actually, people need to understand when you start studying the Virginia map, Virginia went all the way up to the Great Lakes. They just claimed, they say claimed by Virginia until 1786. So Virginia said
Right.
they and
Right.
understanding when you say,
What you're talking about is the English or the British claim. When we talk about Virginia, Virginia being a colony of Virginia of the British. So this
Mhm.
was that was their earliest claim, but we know that claim got pushed back when the French uh, claimed the middle portion of the United States, or what we present day United States. Um, but I got something. Then, if can you go back to that first one where you were showing, you know, the colonization? Yeah, 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 yeah. So this is interesting, and
Mhm.
I just want to focus right now on Portugal, right? So because we always talk about the slave trade and bringing slaves. So when you look at Brazil, Brazil is mainly um, were the main source of Portugal's conquest of the New World, right? So, well, I can't pull up something the same time you pull it up. Um,
Whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. You need me to take this down?
no, 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 no. Matter of fact, it's cool. Let's leave it
No,
there.
because I can take it down and you can go into what you.
No, no. I can say it why it's up, and I think it'll be the same effect. So, we always talk about the slave trade, right?
Hmm.
Most of the slaves were brought to South America, right?
True.
That's what they tell you. That's what they tell you.
Hmm.
So there's an Afro-American presence, and that's what they well not Afro-American, an Afro-Brazilian presence that they tell you it's right at 100 million people, right?
True. True.
So think about this. At that time in the 1700s, there were only 2 million people in Portugal, the whole
Mm.
country. Today, presently, there's only 10 million people presently in
Hmm.
Portugal. So
Okay.
Portugal had enough manpower to bring slaves from Africa to Brazil,
Uh-oh.
which now is at a population of 100 million black people.
Mm.
And
Uh-oh.
they presently, today, don't have but 10 million people in the country.
Portugal is not a big country.
Right.
Portugal is a small country.
It's tremendously small. But you're telling me that they brought that. How did they have the manpower? How did they have the boat power to bring enough slaves from Africa to where
Okay.
now there's over 100 million what we call black people in Brazil. How is
Hmm.
that even possible?
I mean, just looking at this map alone, and you thinking, how did you just be able to just pull people from another continent and just dumping them all over these areas here?
Right,
Because we also looking at the Caribbean islands too.
right. But I'm only concentrating on that because Portuguese is spoke uh, in Brazil. That's still presently, their majority language.
True
Um,
that. True that.
so you got 100 million black faces. Hundred. Let me say it slower. 100 million
Mm,
black faces brought to you by a country that presently today only has 10 million people in it. I
wow.
mean, so where's the manpower coming from? Where's where's the expense? Who's paying the expense for that? Because they were poor countries. That was the reason they were coming to the new Americas,
Uh
was
oh.
to build wealth in these countries.
Uh oh. I mean, you throwing something out there, Jerome. You're throwing something out there. I mean, but at the same time, you're right. But at the same time, we're indoctrinized in school to believe, blase, blase. Like again, I just said, we was told that the Pilgrims came here in 1620. They are the first ones to come here from England.
Right, correct.
But we just proved to you that they're not because Jamestown was established in 1604, 1607.
Right.
So how is the Pilgrims the first? Pilgrims came here, which are, mostly I would say Quakers, but they came here for religious freedom.
So the story says.
Yes. And Plymouth Rock is in Massachusetts, which
Right.
is nowhere near. So we're looking at the Boston area. So they're nowhere clear, nowhere close to Virginia. Nowhere.
That's correct.
So, like you said, now we're starting to see how, everybody's come over here and you stake and claim. It's no different than what we do today.
Right. And I think a lot of that has to do with the indigenous people that were here. They didn't look at borders the same way as Europeans did.
Hmm.
And so, they were more the resources, follow the resources, just flow with the resources kind of people, you know. And when I say that kind of people, I mean, they established places and places were established, but, there was really no border. People had free trade, if you will. And
Was it really free trade? And the
what do
reason
you
why I
mean?
say that, and the only reason why I say that, because they don't find none of these islands without the navigation of particular people. In other words, you just could get on a boat and this just happens. You just magically just from England or from Europe or from anywhere, and you just happen to land in these areas and be like, "Hey, guess what we found?"
Yeah. Well, now when I say free trade, I mean the established people that were here in the Americas had
Hmm.
already had a trade routes, trade agreements,
Hmm.
um, had trade with people. Well, I don't want to say trade agreements because it's free. They did trade with anybody that landed. That's what I mean by Now, as far as the Europeans, of course, um, the trade routes that they followed, were have been established for thousands of years. It would just so happen that um, they wanted to get into it and be a part of it from a different perspective.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
You
I
good?
gotta learn how to master that because it's kind of like when you pull it up. But actually, it's interesting because I was curious, so I had to go do some research, and I got my notes here.
All right. Got his notes.
All right, so the Spanish didn't get here. They basically was here 1500s.
Right. That's
They
correct.
wasn't they broke a tree. They broke rules, and they established their first colony or first fort, which is St. Augustine. If anybody
August.
ever go to St. Augustine, that's their first saying, you know what, this is ours. Because everything else they just explore and explore and explore, like Dora the Explorer, just walking around, checking this out, checking that out. So we're looking at 1565.
Right.
Now we get to 1610, which is Santa Fe, Texas. Texas, Santa Fe is it Texas or Santa Fe? In
Now Santa Fe is in Arizona, I think.
Arizona. That's 1610. So they
Right.
made it, within 60, 50 years, they went from Florida.
But it wasn't Arizona then, so
Yeah, it was Mexico. No, 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 no. Fuck it.
uh,
Can't really call it what it is.
because it was a Spanish territory.
True, true
That's
that.
why it's Santa Fe.
All right, so then we got the French. The French didn't hit the United hitting the North America until we're looking at 1608, which is Quebec, which is what we'll call Quebec right now, which is Canada. So the Dutch colonies didn't get here until 1624, which is Albany, which is we call currently Albany, New York.
New York, yeah.
Now, within that same sense, in 1625, they purchased the Manhattan Islands. They basically what we consider New York City.
Okay, we'll call it a purchase.
They say they purchased it from the indigenous people for trinkets and for this and for that. You got to understand,
Right.
nobody respects none of these trade agreements or these treaties that they put in place. But the Swiss, the little asshole Swiss, they didn't get here to 1638, and they consider Wilmington, Delaware, is where they established their first colony.
Right.
So you got all these colonies on this east coast, on this coastline. But then nobody talks about the England Dutch wars, the Anglo Spanish wars. In other words, these countries started fighting within countries. So it's no different than it is in Europe. They fighting each other.
I mean, it's the same thing as in Europe because the European countries fighting each other. They're just in a different spot.
So all these wars that we see, the religious wars, what's the name of these religious wars? Crusades that they
Yeah.
was having.
All
We
right.
we we watched all these old English movies when you see the French fight the English, or you know they merge into one, or the Spanish fight and they merge into one big family by a marriage. We showed y'all, and I think we touched on that when we talked about Jamestown, and this whole Pocahontas situation comes into play as a this bring these two families together is to bring peace. They don't love each other, but we just want them to get married because we get tired of fighting. But you got to understand, these colonies didn't just pop here and you know indigenous people just open the door and say, "Hey, you know what, man? Yo, you can go over there. Take that little piece of land over there. We don't even use that land over there." It was a lot of fighting, a lot of fighting.
Right.
Virginia,
So,
go ahead, go
so,
ahead.
so when you was showing the map and you was showing
Which one?
what um either one, the first one works. Yeah,
This one?
yeah, that works. So on the map when you were showing, let's take for example where uh, Spain had taken the Florida area,
Mm-hmm.
um, in the Florida region, where they actually, is up towards South Carolina because on the PD River in South Carolina is where they established their first fort. Um, so, I mean, this is a generalization, but like I said, so the Spanish, you got to think that their country wasn't as strong either. So places that they held, they were stretched out all down through what's present day Mexico, present day Central America, the top of South America, and down the Pacific side of South America. So the armies that they had, or the actual took it down, or the actual forces that they were
No,
used
my
to
edit.
control
I'm
these
dude.
areas.
My bad. My bad. What happened is I'm sitting here. I don't hear nothing. It's like everything went blank. My whole screen just went blank. I'm sorry, y'all.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
pull this back up.
Oh, okay. You good? You good? You good? So anyway, um, Spain didn't have the necessary forces to hold, all these positions. So that's why the United States, we're in the United States presently. The British, you know, took those areas so easily. Um, for example, in 1702, England and the Netherlands um, came together to have a war against France and Spain, and this was
Mhm.
1702. And so during that war, during the aftermath of that war, um, that's when the British plundered St. Augustine in Florida. Yeah, and so this is when you see these territories start to merge and become something different. Um, England went into Portugal, and in 1703, it wasn't long. Portugal signed a treaty with England. It was called the Great Covenant.
Let me see
And
if I
later
can.
on, they signed a trade agreement with England. This is Portugal. Like I told you, Portugal wasn't physically strong enough to hold off England. They didn't have the people. They didn't have the manpower. But yet, we're to believe that they brought millions of slaves over from Africa to South America, not understanding that all these blacks that are in Brazil were already here, already native to the land. And that, like I said, the mathematics prove that out. Um, so the French that you said were in upper part of uh, North America, Quebec, and higher. It's interesting too that that the French and Indians, which that's how they got together, and they started to attack the British, right? Because the British had come into those territories that were owned by the indigenous. Now, there's an interesting there's an interesting guy, man, that you can look up. He's a Frenchman, Ellis New. And I don't speak French, so I hope I didn't mess that up. But it's
Oh,
N.
wait a minute. My French interpreter. What's the
Oh,
What's the
okay.
person's name?
Let me spell it. I think it's new, but Neau.
Neau.
Yeah,
All right, I got that look on my face.
but Ellis, I said new, but
All right, let me try.
anyway, he was born in France and became an English citizen,
Can you
but he was
push?
he was a black man, and he had gotten captured in Jamaica when he was doing business,
Oh, okay.
and anyway, he had become a businessman and a merchant, and he had gotten captured by another French privateer that tried to make him into a slave, and he had done a little time after this slavery, But he once he was free, he moved to New York and still became a merchant. Very uh, powerful man, and he opened a school for blacks in New York. Um, and so during that same year that he opened the school, I think 1704, he opened it on February 28th in New York. Um, the French and Indians, or these blacks, got together again and attacked Deerfield, Massachusetts, where they killed 50 people and took 100 people as slaves. Oh, they're not slaves, but as prisoners of war. Um, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff that was going on early 1700s as far as indigenous people and these colonies that were fighting each other.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the name. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up.
Okay.
Damn, where's my pen?
You trying to pull his name up?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull
E
up.
L Eliasnu excuse me,
Wait a minute.
Neu.
EL.
Oh, okay. Elias. That's his first name. Neau.
Let me see if I can pull it up. Trying to be better of a tech boy, but I suck at it.
We're gonna have to hire a producer. Somebody's off in the wings.
The Frenchman opened the first black school.
Oh, you see it?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what am I pulling up.
Well,
But keep going. My bad. I'm gonna find them.
no, you good. But like I said, because I mean, think of it from a perspective. You're talking about the 1700s, talking about a black man that was a entrepreneur. Yeah, had the opportunity to open up a school. This is in New
You
York.
started today?
So,
Okay, thank you.
and we know that slavery was going on at that time. So for him to be a black entrepreneur that's born in France, became an English citizen, he got to move around the world an awful lot, unmolested. So it shows you that there was some diversity in uh, that time that we just didn't understand, or it's not reported to us. It's always like, all black people are slaves and they all were slaves, but that's not the case.
Yeah, this is a picture of New York African Free School.
Free school, you know. So that tells you that they were free, and this is 1700. So now I doubt you'll find a picture of them because it was the 1700s, unless it's drawn or painted portrait. Um, but nevertheless, like I said, the environment of the times, are much different than what we learned and what was reported to us. Um, there was a big population of us, that was already here. It already was integrated into, our systems. It's just at that time you had a lot of warring countries coming over, putting war onto us, and we was not prepared for war.
Especially when it comes to, you know, and I think this was something a lot of people have to understand. The Cherokee Nation is a colony of a bunch of different nations that was pushed down. So you got to look at this whole map of colonization of the 13 colonies. Now, I showed you the map of how big Virginia was. So you saying all these people in these land just up and left? No. They was infighting, fighting, fighting. They was pushed down from all the way from New York, and they just made their way down south.
Right.
And a lot of people have to understand is Virginia Company. Because you got to look at this charter, Virginia charter, and it's kind of like, huh? Why you need a Virginia charter? Virginia charter. So all of these is financed by a company or business owners in England. So we got to understand
It
who
was
they
it
are.
was chartered by who?
King James.
King James. He chartered the Virginia Company to claim all those areas.
Same dude
Oh,
that, read, got this King James version of the Bible. That same dude. Boom. That had to
you had to
let
throw
you
it
know.
in, right?
I had to throw that in there because you know what? We ain't gonna get into that because you know how some people get upset when we talk about religion. Religion has nothing. Religion has a lot to do with it, but understanding what dynamic of what England is doing. England is. You got to understand how powerful England had became. If they came over here, and I just showed you, or I'm telling you what colonies that England had, not England, but European colonies came over. That means the 13 colonies wasn't established yet. And they just, and this you got to understand is to today, with the technology we have today, yes, we probably can build a city. I mean, we see Japan, we see China can build cities in a matter of months. That with the technology to today, we talking about back then. All you had was an axe,
Right.
and you telling me all these places was established, and you have all these Native Americans and indigenous people sleeping in teepees and man, come on, man. All this shit was already established before they came here. You just, you know,
Yeah,
you.
yeah. But I think, like I said, it's the perception of how you see um, 300 or 400 years ago. You think um, that when we talk about uh, or when we use the word uh, uh, indigenous, you always think about savage. But the only way that people were called savage, and the only reason they were called savage, Eric had mentioned the doctrine of discovery. Um, is that when they had this doctrine of discovery, it says that any land that you came into and the people were not uh, English or European Christians, that they were savages. And because they were savages, you could take their land, you could take the people, you could take um, anything in the name of God. And so they were backed by this doctrine of discovery. And so, yeah, right. And so that's what made people savages, not how they dressed, not how they lived, not how they worshiped, but because you didn't worship the European Christianity, you were a savage. So I can take your land. And see, that's what happened. When the people came here, they socialized because the people that were here were civilized and intelligent people. So when
Hmm.
they came, it wasn't an attack. It was a talk, and so they had convinced them that they were friendly and that they were there to do business. But we see what happened. History doesn't tell you what happened, but we see what happened. It's interesting too. We talk about New York. You said the Dutch, which is like the Netherlands, had claimed that area, New York. But New York, yeah, right. But then you see how by the late 1600s, 1700s, England had controlled the Netherlands, and that's how. Then they went to war with everybody else that held colonies or held claims, and that's how they became British colonies because they just took it, and more so than them being superior uh, warriors. Um, they just had a plan, a simple plan, and they executed. And they executed this plan to perfection. Um,
and they never away from it. And that's
yeah,
the thing about it, because by the 1664, you only had three countries that was in the Americas now, which is
right.
the British, and the Spanish. Spanish, like you say, it's kind of like Spanish, or you could say they was like the old Rome. They spread it out too thin, and they didn't have like you say, they didn't have the manpower to fight for the countries or territories that they somewhat took over. So they lost a lot of territory. All these, you know, they didn't lose land like they ran out of money. They lost it because they just couldn't hold it.
They couldn't
You
hold.
they
Let me put the map up real quick. Let me show you something.
Which
The
one?
first,
Which one?
yeah, that first one that we always been going to. Yeah. So if you take where it says New France and you bring it all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, now this is
Mhm.
the area that France had claimed. And if you bring the purple, up towards like California, yeah, and all through that area, this is where Spain had held, right?
Wait a minute. I think
Now,
I got another map of that. I think I got
okay,
another map.
okay,
Boom.
yeah, 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 beautiful. So if you look at these areas, right? Now during the 1700s, you have France and Spain teaming together trying to beat England because, like I said, the Spanish their army was not that strong. They had a good navy game going on. The Spanish Armada. It lasted for a little bit. The French had more of the ground soldiers, right? And
Hmm.
so they would fight from that perspective. So it lasted, and I'll skip ahead just a little bit to like the 1800s, right? So by the time 1802 came around, the Haitians was like, nah, we ain't playing y'all using our land, coming over here using our resources. So from 1802, like 1804, they went to war with France, the Haitians I'm talking about, and they defeated uh, France. And France had to use a lot of manpower trying to defeat the Haitians. And so they could not defend their territories and help Spain and take a whooping in Haiti. So that it bankrupted them as far as people power and money power.
Hmm.
So they had to quickly throw the whole notion of war away and say to the United States or to these colonies, um, what we'll do if you give us X amount of money, we'll give you the whole territory.
And I think it's about $15 million to
Yeah,
today's money.
today's money, yeah, about $15 million. And so this is
Back
how.
then, no. Let me take that back.
No, it was then fifteen
Then
million
it
dollars
was
then.
$15 million.
Yeah,
Then,
then, and then their present time.
which I
Um,
still don't understand. How the hell America? How did these English have $15 million? But that's a whole different story. And we talking about the. Go ahead, because I don't
right,
understand
right,
where you're
right.
getting the money from. But go ahead.
I know, I get you. And so these British colonies, expanded into these territories, right? Into the like the where you say the French territory, right?
Mhm.
With, with Spain, as I told you from the beginning, didn't have the manpower. They didn't have the manpower. That's why they combined with the French. So that's why all their territories went away. And what you call the United States just claimed everything except Mexico. That's the only thing that they could defend. Once they took Texas, I guess they didn't want to go further down. But Florida, it was quickly assimilating into what we call the present day United States. So that is the formation of the United States in a nutshell. Is that the French, after the Haitians whooped their tail, didn't have the money nor manpower to hold on to the territories. And so the colonies assimilated and they took everything over to the West Coast, or claimed everything over to the West Coast. Now, during this process, the indigenous people are still here.
Mm.
And so the indigenous people actually had a good arrangement with the French. It wasn't because it wasn't chattel slavery. Not with the French and the Spanish. The Spanish themselves had outlawed slavery. So that's why a lot of the indigenous blacks, would go into Mexico. Is because slavery was outlawed by the Spanish. And so now when the British took back over all these territories, that's when you start to see the wars within the United States as what you call um, the Europeans against the indigenous.
Or the Spanish England wars, or you have your
Well, you
uh,
had the French and Indian War, but I
French and
mean,
Indian wars.
yeah,
I mean, they
yeah.
covering it up, but they trying to tell you something, you
Oh,
know.
they're not really trying to tell you, but you can if you look and understand, you'll understand. Like the Seminole War. So after French had given up their territories, how is it that the Seminole War started? And during the early 1800s, that lasted almost 50 years over a span
No,
because
no,
that
no. But I mean, it's kind of interesting when you see this, and nobody really pays no attention to it because it's not important. And it's
right.
like, why you say that's not important? Because you confuse yourself because you kind of in your mind thinking like, what this got to do with anything today? Because you got to understand the powers of be in understanding if they're not telling you the real history, what else they not telling you the truth about? Because you got to understand there's some shady shit that went down. Because now we're going to end up getting into the Revolutionary War, and I don't think we'll jump into that today. But we're going to let you know why the Revolutionary War really come down. It ain't got nothing to do about money and power, what you think it is. It's some greedy people. In other words, you got to
It's not
understand.
about tea.
Hmm?
It's not about tea.
Nah, it's not.
I thought it was about tea. I didn't. That's
But
what
you
I
know what,
always
though?
do.
You actually, we might need to just jump into that too and break down that aspect of it because that's more of another war because, but at the same time, you have the French, you have the British, you have all these, Dutch, Portuguese, you they all fighting inside our country. They're fighting amongst each other, but at the same time, they fighting over land that's already occupied by the current, you know, you know, landlords at that time. We're gonna talk about some of these treaties too, because it's a lot of treaties that was put in place, and then again, the American, United States, turn their back. They don't
Right.
honor nothing. They don't honor nothing.
Eric mentioned the Gully Wars. You know,
And
and
that's
like
just,
I
I
said,
think the Gully Wars was the same as the Seminole Wars in a sense.
well, in a sense, it's basically in the same place. The Gully Wars more in South Carolina. Um, you know, the Seminole Wars were Florida on up and over. Um, so I mean, they were the same kind of people.
No, 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 no. I know because I want to get into. I guess in the future we're going to talk about the Northwest Ordinance and how all these other colonies come into play. And again, that map shows you. Well, let me even pull this map up again because people don't understand this. Technology is something, boy. I tell you what. This map right here. So we're looking at pre-70s. We look at 1773, 76.
But
Not
you
76,
know,
60, 63. So we looking at early. So Virginia, so North Carolina, and South Carolina was the same thing.
right? One,
Basically, is
it was
basically
Carolina.
it was called Carolinas.
Right.
Virginia, which basically, what's beside Virginia?
West,
Kentucky,
yeah, Kentucky,
Indiana,
West Virginia.
West Virginia, Indiana. We're also looking at see how far claimed by the Connecticut. So Connecticut is way over here, up here, but it's claimed by Connecticut. It's claimed by Massachusetts. It's all these land that these states that we know of now are nowhere near. So we're looking at the Great Lakes. So we're looking at Michigan. We're looking at Indiana. We're looking at Ohio. Um, you were looking at, did I say Indiana?
Yeah, you did.
Illinois. My bad, Illinois. And we're gonna get into how all of
Wisconsin,
huh?
Wisconsin. That's what's on the other side there. But
Yeah,
Great Lake,
Not Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minnesota. Well, that's over beside. But that's later on when you talk about the conquest of the West. But
True.
but but all of that, even the ones that were Massachusetts, Connecticut, that were New York, that were claiming later, were still claimed by Virginia first. You
True.
know, and so
Virginia took a chunk.
yeah,
They claimed unterritorial land. In other words, it's kind of like if I see it, I claim it.
like
I
I
see
said,
it. I claim
a claim can be disputed. They claim land that people were on. you know, they just didn't recognize the people that was on the land because they called them savages,
it.
because they were not European Christians. So they made claims, but they had to back up off some of them claims. Because people just wasn't moving for nothing.
They call it greed
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
because
drive.
learning these people, learning how some of these, like Delaware, which if Wilmington, Delaware was found by the Swedish, was it the Swedish? My bad. Yes, but that wasn't the name of it. It became Lord Delaware, which is one of the first governors of Jamestown. Which my
Right.
bad, military governors, basically governors, captains, they granted him land. Now, a lot of times we have to understand when we start talking about the Revolutionary War and after the Revolutionary War, a lot of one of the establishments or one of the bargaining chips for you to fight is we're going to give you land. Now you got to give these people land. You have to give these soldiers land. And this is where you have a lot of these plantations in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, um, also the whole northwest ordinance. They broke that down, so you're starting to see pre-United States starting to form, and some of the things. And there's a lot of people was fighting against what they were seeing, but at the same time, greed is greed. You couldn't go west of the Appalachian Mountains. That's what the Britons told you that. But then that's where you got to understand when somebody say "F you," we're gonna do it anyway. Boom. Now you got a war going on. So um, it's interesting. Like I said, history is interesting. It is so interesting, and where some of these names come from for some of these states. Again, like New York. New York is named after James II, the Duke of York.
Interestingly enough, there was York, Ontario, was the old York. New York became after that.
The
So
word new.
right,
Anytime you see New Jersey, New
right.
York,
It was
what else?
somewhere else, and they brought it there. New
New
Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Right.
So it was already some of these cities, some of these states are still indigenous territories, indigenous land, but a lot of them were named of Europeans, mostly English, People who basically put money into what they're doing. This is an industry. This is a industry. This is a corporation in a sense. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. A lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, we separated from the British." No, the hell we didn't.
Come on, B, don't bust that bubble now. We ain't
No,
got
because
that
a
far.
lot of people gotta hear this, man.
We ain't got that
Separate.
far yet.
We we don't care because,
Right.
but we are prisoners of war. That's
Indeed.
that's kind of like how this slave notion of what slavery is. We didn't come here on no boats. I mean, you got to understand. You have the 1619. They saying they what 25 came on a boat. They don't tell you how they found them 25 people because they wasn't like 25 people that they went took from Africa. It's 25 people of a boat that they actually scavenged, and they happened to found Africans on there, and then they brought them to Williamsport, not Williamsport, Jamestown. So actually, you know what? This whole
What's up?
1619 project and seeing how this lady lose, how it's upsetting certain Americans.
I hadn't even watched it.
I haven't watched it either, but at the same time, I see a lot of people upset because it shows you a dark history of America that they don't want you to see.
It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. Most people don't like the truth to hit them because it's kind of like ooh. But then as you get some people, it's like that ain't what we were. We stand on top of our flag. Your flag has a lot of blood on it,
A tremendous lie. We
but
wrapped in that
you,
bloody flag. But I think, you know, truth is comfortable is what they teach in school. Real truth is what shaped America. Real truth is what shaped the world. It's blood, it's conquest, it's war. That's how
always
our
war,
world was shaped. Huh?
always war.
Always.
That's why we still fight to this day because we still. Tell me how big. How big? Just show me. Man, maybe I need to pull it up. The colonies, the British colonies, and show you
Talking
how
about
big.
worldwide?
Yes, let me see if I can put it up.
Yeah. I could tell you what they are. Well, I could tell you what they were too.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna pull up. But um
I got to pull it
South
up.
South Africa. Um I'm not gonna go through the countries in the continent. You can see those. Uh India, we're over here, uh, 13 colonies. The islands, a lot of the islands were British occupied. They had us one of the most spread out empires in the history of the world. You find it?
Come on, man. I'm getting better at this. I'm getting better
All
at
right,
this.
all right, all right. You doing your thing.
Boom.
There it is. See, that's the countries that I was talking about going down through the continent to South America. Um, it's interesting that their flag is called the Union Jack, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at the Union Jack, now look at the present day flags. The Union Jack is still on there. Now, when you talk about the Americas, what color is the flag?
Red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue. Why wouldn't you go away from the color scheme if you broke away from England?
And another thing a lot of people need to understand: United States is still partially under British. It's not under British ruling, but it's still under. Yeah, still under that fucking shit. So I mean, go ahead. My bad. Keep going. Keep going. My bad. My bad.
No, 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 you fine. I was I was just reading a comment. Put up Eric's last comment.
Oh, okay. Hold up. I gotta go back.
Okay.
This one?
Yeah,
Okay. Wow. That's interesting.
that's real interesting.
Eric putting that knowledge up there, man.
And like I said, uh, during that time, because the OMEC, right? The
Mm-hmm.
OMEC is not what those people originally called themselves. That's a word uh, that people from that area or dialect, that's what they called them. They called that actually means like rubber people. Um, so yeah. So the OMEC is the ones that established, uh, and then what we're talking about, we're going into the BCs. This is who established um, foundation of civilization in Central America uh, and the Americas. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I say that when we talk about when the Europeans got here, there were already um, civilization had already been established,
Mm.
buildings, cities, all these things are already here. The OMEC were actually, uh, if you want to find where the Mayans went, how they disappeared, and nobody knows where they mysteriously went to, or nobody knows what they mysteriously look like. They look like the OMEC because they were the same people. Um, they had establishments in Georgia, which they
Mm-hmm.
are excavating at this very moment. One of the largest Mayan excavations is in Georgia, and interesting enough, that's where a lot of our people are
Mm.
from the south. So the Mayans just simply became, or the Olmecs simply became what they call Indians when they got here. And these Indians became blacks. I mean, it's just a transferal of names during this whole process. We're always called something different. It seems like every 10 years they call us something different. And that's
Yeah,
to
we
keep
trying
us
to find now.
hold
We getting
off.
away from that. Really, they trying to get rid of race. I
Right.
mean, race have been already erased a long time ago, but at the same time, it is basically a form of division. Um,
But when you talk about now, like if for somebody to say, well, I don't see color, well, to say that you don't see color means that you don't recognize me for my individuality.
mhm.
Now, because if you don't see something, then it makes me nothing.
It makes you ignoring the fact that you just trying not to acknowledge
Right.
the difference within ourselves. Now, if you was to break it down and say because of we're all the same or this, and I understand the struggle when you and then you saying I'm just trying not to use your color as a division or use your color against you. Yeah, I can kind of understand you there, but ain't nobody gonna get that deep. Ain't nobody trying to get that damn deep. But no, but at the same time, I mean, look at history. Look at history, and we keep finding things. I didn't know, like for instance, going back and studying Mansa Musa, come to find out it was one of the richest man's ever to live on this planet. But then or when you're studying Egypt, and then you know that it was Kemet or Nubia that was before Egypt. You know, they ain't gonna teach you that in the book. You have to
Mm.
go study. I mean, they put that in the book. They're not gonna teach you that. You know, Egyptology. But then come to find out some of the stuff is way older than the word Egypt. But that's a whole different story.
I mean,
We gonna journey along. We gonna go somewhere and people are gonna be like, well, where the hell y'all at? We're trying to stay on top of it. We're trying to stay on top. We're trying to
keep
address
us
this
over
better. We're
in
trying
the
to stay on top.
1700s, right?
We're trying to stay here.
But
That
I mean,
too. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
right. We'll get on that one day because it all ties together too.
True that. True
Uh,
that. True that.
uh, I'm trying to refocus because I want to go into that so bad. But yeah, I mean, we're old, man. We got um, if you just look here in the Americas, you can find some of the oldest structures, some of the oldest. I get here's something interesting. Where is the oldest human remains uh, ever in the world been found? Where were they found at? I know you're gonna Google it, but I'm just saying off the top of your
I ain't gonna tell you off the top of my head because I don't know off the top of my head.
head. So where would you think? Just see it out.
I don't know. They keep earliest humans remain found. They say Ethiopia. Oldest human skull found Ethiopia. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Cause see when that's really like a play on words when they tell you Ethiopia because that wasn't truly a human.
Uh-oh.
So that was more. Um, did I drop that? Oh, my screen went blank for a minute. I'm still there.
Yeah, you
Can you
here?
still see me?
Yeah, what's wrong, dude?
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
can see.
Oh, but it's actually in the United States. Yeah, it's actually in the United States because a lot of those that they're saying humans, that's over a broad stroke because we're Homo sapiens sapiens. So even if
Uh-oh.
they said it was a Homo sapien, that's still like 200,000 years of separation between modern day man and what that was. So don't let them fool you because the oldest human remains are found here in the United States.
Okay, okay, okay. All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up a little bit. So
All right.
that's another fine lesson from the Three Headed Monster podcast. So, but no,
Remember,
I mean, like I said, dude, I mean, this
like
is.
and share.
I just want to say I appreciate people just being on and just, we try to do what we can. We trying to build. We trying to create activity in your mind to start. For you to start. Be like, where did they find this information from? And let me go find it for myself. And
Right.
we have to teach the generation under us and the next generation the truth about the so-called United States. A bunch of states. It's basically a bunch of countries within one big country, but we're just trying to give you the early history, the pre United States. So we're gonna keep digging and digging until we hit this. You know, we're just gonna keep doing what we do. So, my brother, I appreciate you being on.
No doubt.
You know, I guess I get my final words out. Uh, he said, "You just here to make you think." That's that Dan Calloway type thing. But I mean, at the same time, we have to make you think, and that's the problem. America don't think; they just react.
I
But
mean, they're so used to indoctrination, being told what's truth and accept it,
and
not
nobody
having
wants to
to,
do
not
research.
having to research it for yourself, not having to dig for it yourself, not being able to comprehend what you're reading, so you can deduce what really happened.
True that. But I'm getting my last words. I want to say thanks to everyone. Thanks YouTube, YouTube viewers, my Facebook viewers. Again, this is a three-headed monster. We're working on some new things. We're working on our website. Uh, we're changing our logo. Um, we trying to keep doing that thing. Um, and it's going to be some stuff coming up in the future. So just be on the lookout for us. Again, share, like, you know, tell somebody about it. Subscribe. My little boy's saying subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Yeah,
Subscribe.
tell them that. B, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. So when Three-Headed Monster is on, you don't miss an episode.
Like I said, y'all, we digging into the 1700s now. Now we're starting to see the formation of what we so called, what man?
Tell them to follow you so when you go live, they get notified.
Okay, you heard that. I don't know if you heard that. You want to come over and tell everybody that? Come on around here, dude.
What do you
Go
say?
ahead. I guess I got a spokesperson.
So, right? If y'all want to subscribe, y'all can follow so y'all get notified for when the three-headed monster go live again.
There you go.
So what I got to deal with on a daily basis, man.
Hey, but he's telling the truth. Hit that notification button so you can get us when we're live. Pound that like button so we can change the algorithms, so we can get more views, so we can get more people on here.
And educate more people, because the
Right.
more people we educate, the numbers of this black veil that we keep walking around and get these blinders off, so we can start seeing things for truly what we are. And then everybody can say we want our land back. That's what they don't want you to know. This
Right.
is this land is your land. And it's mine. Across.
There you go. You get singing too. But yeah, we like to thank those people that commented tonight. Aaron, Charles, appreciate it. Surprised we didn't see Alex tonight, but
Atlas will hit us later. He hit us later.
yeah, he'll hit it up later. Um, but man, it's a good show once again. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of y'all, man. Oh, just remember, there's 10 million people presently in Portugal, but there's 100 million black people in Brazil that speak Portuguese. Hmm. Wow.
He ain't gonna let that one go, but that's a big
Okay.
one. That's a deep one.
Okay.
All right, y'all. This is the three-headed monster, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.